such a time as this.
And welcome to For Such a Time as This round table edition with Prof. Chris, Prof. Abby, and Professor Dennis.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, we're going to talk about an article that appeared on our Facebook page on the Christian Post. It appeared Wednesday, February 19th, the article, and it is entitled, How Can You Follow Jesus and Support Donald Trump? A response to Shane Idleman. In the article, he's responding to a man, Shane Idleman, who writes an article saying Christians should support Donald Trump. He vehemently, that is, who wrote the article again?
George somebody, vehemently.
He's a lawyer.
He's a lawyer. What are you trying to say?
I'm just
He's from
giving
the
an
pit.
identifier.
Is that
George
what you're trying to say?
Somerville.
Yeah.
Somerville vehemently disagrees with Shane Idleman and says that if you are a Christian, there's no way you can support the devil's lieutenant Donald Trump, from what the article in essence
He didn't
said.
use that term.
He in essence he said it. So who would like to start us off? Professor Dennis?
Well, the fur got up on the back of my neck primarily over at least one thing, and we'll get to whatever we're going to get to on this. But
You have the floor.
a couple of paragraphs down on this article, he says, he talks about the foreigner and the stranger. The fact quoting him, the fact nevertheless is that the acts of this administration are highly contrary to numerous biblical injunctions to welcome the foreigner and the stranger, depending on translation, and to treat him compassionately and justly. How does that advance Christian values? Now, for me, the thing that bugs me the most is when people use Scripture to support their position, and they're using Scripture incorrectly. I mean, let's get this straight. Yes, we're everybody and every time and every place that is a follower of God, a true follower of God. Yes, we're supposed to be compassionate. Yes, we're supposed to be hospitable, and those kinds of things. But in our day and age, well, my question to him is, when does a stranger become how do you define an invader? Would be one question. Just something. And when people came into Israel, did they bring their, was it the Canaanites? Well, if there was a foreigner, were they allowed to bring in their idols with them? And was that looked upon well? No, it wasn't. I mean, just looking in the Exodus, when they're leaving Egypt, there was a verse I was reading that said, if the foreigner who's with you or the stranger that's with you, they have to follow the same rules.
Right.
You can't just come into Israel and say, I'm going to do what I want to do the way I'm used to doing it. You had to become like them. And yeah, you may be visiting for a little while, but if you're a sojourner or a foreigner or stranger, I mean, did these people come and say, hey, by the way, I'm a stranger, but I ain't leaving?
So what are you saying? The Christians should support the president? Oh no.
Well, I wasn't even getting to that.
Oh, okay.
I'm just dealing with this paragraph here that, like I said, got the fur on the back of my neck going up, is that the Bible doesn't say that you just let everyone in and you give everything to them. It doesn't say that.
Was that he? I don't think he was advocating that in the article.
He didn't. As usual,
Yeah.
he's complaining about the present policy, but he doesn't explain what he wants to see happen. And I find that that happens all the time in these things that are written by leftists. They give no examples, and they don't actually spell out what it is they're looking for.
Well, he said contrary to numerous biblical injunctions, and the current administration is against
Wrong.
them. And it's like, did this guy read his Bible? That's my bottom line.
No, he didn't even give you one biblical injunction to support that.
There you
no
go.
examples.
Well, I noticed you. I'm just going to play the advocate here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I noticed you jumped down a few
I did.
paragraphs.
I said that.
He starts off with this. Mr. Idleman acknowledges, downplays the obvious fact that President Trump, quote, lacks Christian character, close quote. What, however, could be more important? As Christians, we ought to always have the Great Commission in the forefront of our minds. How does Christian support for Donald Trump make disciples of Christ? Mr. Edelman does not address this question. I mean, what do you have to say to that?
The president of the country is supposed to lead people to Christ?
Yeah.
That's in the Constitution as a responsibility for the president, Article 3.
He's saying, as a Christian, should the gospel and Christian character be in the forefront of our minds?
Yes,
Well,
that's my job.
Right.
And if you read it
I mean-
carefully,
No, you're right.
yeah, yes, that part is right. I mean,
Right?
not what, but what he's saying is, does the Christian support for President Trump advance, or is it detrimental to the Great Commission? If you read
I
that,
think he was saying Christian support for Donald Trump.
right?
Is it?
right?
Is it,
That's what I said.
okay.
And okay, so here's my question. I'm wondering if he applies this test to all the candidates and all the presidents, because I want to know which one meets his criteria. We don't vote in a vacuum. There are a limited number of choices. I would argue that all our choices in 2016 were much more corrupt. Well, I'm talking about in the general election,
Okay.
the final
okay.
election.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, did he think Hillary Clinton was a more morally righteous person? I mean, he must, I guess. I don't know how you can make that case with a straight face.
You can make the assumption, right? And I agree with you. Make that assumption that then you have to assume he would have voted or thought Hillary Clinton would have been better.
He doesn't say that, though.
But he doesn't say it, and so
but
it's really
that's
speculation.
the part of the problem.
Right?
He doesn't say.
And I agree with you.
He doesn't say don't vote. He doesn't say a Christian shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. He doesn't
Here's
say
the
a Christian
criteria
should
that you should use to
Right.
vote.
Right, or a Christian should vote
Yeah.
for one of these Democrats. He doesn't ever say. All he's doing is complaining, basically.
Yeah, I agree. That was my impression. Overall
I never
impression as well.
complain.
Peanut does not complain.
We know you.
So are we saying as a group it is okay, or is it mandatory? Is it best? Is it lukewarm? Are you neutral? Christians supporting Donald Trump. Is it okay for a Christian to support Donald Trump? What am I hearing?
Yeah, I say it's okay. Right?
Okay.
And that's kind of a loaded answer. It's not a black and white. Yes, you should.
Okay.
I don't have a problem if somebody wants to.
Okay.
Because, again, to Professor Abby's point, when you look at the 2016 election, I totally agree. Hillary Clinton, who was all for abortion, all for the things that do not...
All things LGBT.
Yep.
Which the
trans-
president is too, so you can't.
I mean, she considers
I understand,
Christians
but there were
deplorable.
things that she should take your money and she should decide how you live your life, right? You vote for president, and the Constitution. The president is not the moral leader of the country, by the way.
Well, you can't.
He is not the.
He is a moral leader.
He is a moral leader, or she.
Wait.
If we ever elect a woman, but the Constitution does not give that authority or that description to the president. The president is just a figurehead.
Does not give what description? Let me be clear.
There is no clause in the Constitution that says the president will be the moral leader of the country. Or
But
anything close to that.
Well,
it
I
only
think-
provides duties.
But there's something more important in the Constitution that says he is.
you think? Yeah. Well, okay.
Right? Am I wrong?
Well, in the Bible, leaders of our governments are for God's purpose, right?
Yes.
So every leader that's been put in charge of any country is there for his purpose,
Yep.
whether it's Pol Pot in Cambodia or Donald Trump in the U.S. or FDR way back in the 20s or 30s.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah,
We're
that's,
gonna
I
get
understand
that's what
that.
it says.
Were you going to get a good one in that list?
That's my point.
Oh.
Is David was in charge of Israel, and was he had his faults too, right?
Well, I think
But my-
the founders envisioned, well, maybe that's not the right way to say it, but I think if things were operating the way they should, the church should be the conscience of the country. Now,
in my long-winded way, that's where I was trying to get to, is the real moral leaders of the country are the church.
and that's not happening
And
now
it isn't. And
for
the
various
church has
reasons.
abdicated that 60, 70 years ago. We don't need to be involved in this.
I'd like to have a session on that question alone, but go ahead.
Did be wonderful. But
Yeah,
to
I'm up
your
for
point,
it.
Abby, that's where I was trying to get to, is the true moral leaders of the country is the church.
I mean, we are Christians are supposed to be the witnesses to what is right and
right.
what is true, correct?
President was never meant to, I know what reality is, but the original design was never meant to have as much power as they have. The power of the country truly lies in the legislature, according to the Constitution. Now, if you ignore it and pervert it and decide, yeah, let's let the president put all these bureaucrats in place to make rules and regulations that they see fit when Congress abdicates their authority, I understand that's the reality of it.
Well, actually, it's been abdicated to judges, but go ahead.
Well,
for
Congress.
the most part.
Congress abdicated
Yeah, because they
to
don't do their job,
the
and they don't get rid
presidential-
of judges who are making laws. We're stuck with.
Let me bring this
Anyway,
back.
yes, please do.
Let me bring this back. Here's what he says. The author, he says, President Trump is a seemingly compulsive liar. He has a long history of immoral affairs and exploitation of those who are economically weaker. And he is a bully, especially a cyber bully, which is an enormously important issue for young people today. Our children are watching. If we praise and glorify Donald Trump,
Who's praising and glorifying him?
well, let me say this, because I'm just gonna call balls and strikes. All right, best of my ability. You have some Christian people, some call them leaders, who are saying the man is saved. God's hand is on him. You even have his spiritual advisor say to go against Trump is to go against God.
Yeah,
Oh,
and look
wow.
at who his
Right?
spiritual
I'm
advisors
just,
are.
I'm just saying.
That's part of the problem.
I'm just saying.
I'm just
Who are
puking.
they and what movement are they a
That's
part
what
of?
he's. Yeah, it's Paula White. She's
Yeah.
a heretic.
There
but,
you go.
But what I'm saying is,
My pastor
I think
hasn't
this-
said any of that stuff.
No, I think what he's pushing against this is this. And read Romans 13. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities. Why? For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Are we okay? Uh-oh. Technical. There we go. Are we okay with, so this, I think, is what he's of course I don't agree with this man, but he's raising some
Yes.
concerns.
Yes.
And
Go ahead.
he's correct about a lot of things. I mean,
Well, let's not
President
go
Trump
too far.
owns strip clubs. He's a serial adulterer. He's narcissistic, and I think all of us wish that he would get somebody standing between him and that Twitter feed. But I mean, he's got so many. Shall we say?
Well,
Issues,
then what
faults,
exactly?
sins.
What the man?
But
he's making the argument that Donald Trump's an immoral man. So what exactly are you disagreeing with this? this
I
author?
agree
Well,
with
what are you
him as far as,
disagreeing
but
with
what
him
I'm
on?
saying
Okay.
is I think we're all adults and we can make a distinction between somebody's character
Uh-huh.
and I don't think that necessarily cancels out
No.
all
Finish
the
your
policy.
statement. We can make the difference
between a person's character,
Yeah, 'cause
their
I wanna hear
private
this.
character, and their public actions. In other words,
Did you just justify Bill Clinton's
Oh, gee.
impeachment in
Look.
the 90s?
did I justify it? No, I wasn't actually in favor of that.
You
No,
was not?
I'd have to think about
Your
it now.
your eyes were closed back in the 90s, though, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to say that.
I've actually
It's
changed
true.
my opinion on the impeachment. That was interesting.
Well,
Clinton?
yeah, but
Yeah.
the point being is, yes, he's right. As far as President Trump's personal character, I think he's right. But the fact of the matter is, he has passed an awful lot of very good policy, and I don't think that his personal character necessarily crosses that out. I don't think it cancels out, because what really matters for the country is the policy, isn't it?
Then you would have had no. Again, looking back on it with your Christian views, you have no problem there with President Clinton.
Yes, well, I
in the
didn't. I
90s.
thought President Clinton's policy was his second when I was starting to wake up the second term. I thought his policy was bad. His public policy was bad, and his private character was also bad. But I think the more important thing for a president, and honestly, it's hard for me. I don't know how people split how they split it. I mean,
Wait a minute.
how do you be such a reprobate in private, but his public policy, if I look at the list, he's
Wait-
done an awful lot of
Wait a
really
minute,
good
Abby.
things.
So you really don't care about the personal behavior of a candidate?
I'm not saying I don't care.
Okay.
I mean, I wish that we could have someone who was of a high Christian character and also courageous and bold and willing to, and someone who
Yes.
passes all this good public policy. We've had people at least it looked like they were a better character, more Christian, who were pretty much did nothing. How many of those have we seen? Now, I'm just saying, we have a limited number of choices too. And I'd see no contradiction for a Christian in supporting President Trump, because I've got a list of some of his accomplishments here that I am very much in agreement with, two glaring exceptions, which
Okay.
would be the LGBT thing and the spending, which is out of control.
Those are the two.
And they're big.
Those are the two monstrosities that's going to sink this country. One can argue.
Yeah, but there's
well,
nobody who's good on those either. We've got no choices that are good on those.
Here's. I would agree with you in practice, but in principle, the lesser of two evils is still evil.
Okay. Here
And
we
so,
go. If one's significantly better than the other, I don't see the contradiction. I disagree
here's my
with
thing.
this
As
man.
you know, I rooted for Donald Trump in the election. I don't see any clown come. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I don't see anyone coming from the Democrats that I would rival. But if we could just look at it in principle, the lesser of two evils is still evil. And do we as Christians, and here's what I struggle with, do we as Christians support, if you're going to concede that both are evil?
I think we vote to lessen evil, period.
No, you just changed it.
No, yeah, you're right, I did.
You just changed it.
That's my principle.
So you don't mind voting for evil?
If that one evil is significantly less than the other, yeah, no. I'll
So
vote.
the
I'll
answer
vote
is
for the lesser.
no, you don't mind
Absolutely.
voting for
I don't see
evil.
anything wrong with that.
I'm not saying
have a
Trump
problem.
is
And what is
evil.
the line on evil?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Prof Dennis.
I mean, I don't win any. I don't win a lot of whatever. When I look in the mirror, I think about if I'm going to vote for whoever, and I hear what Prof. Abby is saying, and there's no denying, and there's things I definitely admire about President Trump. I mean, some of his consistency from a political point of view. Not if you can separate the two, politically. I mean, and I'll call myself a neophyte. He may be very astute, and the things that he does with purpose and direction it seems like he's going off the deep end at times, but just maybe he's got a focus that we don't realize or whatever. But he's accomplishing things. He's doing a lot of what he said he was going to do, and that's an amazing for any politician. And people voted for him for those things, but for the things that are listed, and I don't believe everything that George wrote in this article
Yeah,
about President Trump.
Some of it's just patently false.
Yeah,
I would like to see some attestation for me to believe those things, but there are things that are not debatable about Donald Trump. And I don't know that I could vote for anyone like that and look myself in the mirror. Now, by saying that doesn't mean I'm going to vote for the other one either. So
you'll vote for the lesser of two evils.
No, he said he won't
No,
vote.
he's saying he'll just sit it out.
Okay,
I'm
and-
the one who's
okay,
voting for the
and-
lesser.
and
of
that's
two
what I
evils.
do. I find the candidate, because there are
there may be a green
8 to
party
10
or some other
different parties
Yeah.
that are on the ballot when you go for
Yeah.
president.
right.
They want you to think that there's only two, but there's
That's
at
right.
least 10 different parties.
They're
Yeah.
clowns.
So I do.
Prof. Chris. The
so
rest
I
of them
look
are
at
clowns.
who they are and decide who would best represent what I believe is best for America, not promote Christian values, because that's my job. My job as a
Yes.
Christian is to show that and to talk about it and to share the good news. The president has a very specific role in Article 3, and it doesn't include promoting promoting Christian values. The Bible does that. So it does that to us in a moral sense, but it isn't a responsibility of the president in the Constitution. So with that, what do I want my president to do? I want him to do what the Article 3 says the president is responsible to do to the best of his ability, and to live up to the preamble, to protect America, promote the general welfare, right? And to maintain liberty for us and our posterity.
Could he do that and be the quote unquote devil incarnate, and you'd be happy with
That's
that?
a good question.
Is he?
No,
Who is?
No, he's saying in theory
If.
to promote
Well,
the general welfare.
I'm not going to answer in theory,
Well, and
Oh,
okay,
isn't that convenient?
promoting the general welfare.
because then you'll use it as an argument against whatever it is I'm trying to say. So
No,
it's
no,
a-
no.
it's a-
No, no,
it's a straw
Let
man.
me. There's a
No,
lot.
it's not a straw. No.
Is he evil incarnate?
Okay, fine. The most evil person you can imagine, but they did all the things that the Constitution requires.
It's never happened.
I'm not talking about that. I'm trying to draw a line in the sand and seeing where your thinking is on this.
So think of an evil man in the culture today. Who's the most evil man in our country? George Soros? Is that what you want to say?
I
Think of an evil man. David Duke.
sure.
I don't know.
I haven't heard that name in 20 years.
Yeah, he came up a little while ago. They tried to stick him
he
with
did.
Trump. Can that man, I think what Dennis is saying, can that man, think of the most evil man you can think of. Can that man fulfill the Constitution as written? I think what Dennis is saying.
Well, I'm saying let's say that he can, but
We'll promote the general
It's completely
welfare.
theoretical.
yes.
Promote the general welfare.
But
is
my
what you're going at.
point is, can you? I'm asking Chris because it's. I mean, I'm not quite sure where he was coming from, but yes, I am trying to draw a line in the sand, find out where he's standing on this. Is if there's a man that has just terrible moral, ethical values or whatever, however you want to paint it, but he accomplishes the things politically, very purely politically. He does the job. He does it excellently.
Yeah, I didn't vote for Bill Clinton, so to answer your question.
Bill Clinton did that job excellently. Anyway,
He had horrible moral values.
yeah, but
And I think he did an awful job too.
Yeah, his policies weren't that.
So-
they're great.
Actually
well,
reduced the deficit, he reduced the
The
debt.
Republicans did that.
He
Newt
did,
Gingrich
he did
that.
pretty good because he had to work with them.
hey,
Okay, let me say this.
I'm not praising Bill Clinton. What
Go
I'm
back
telling
to
you
them.
is he did okay, but he was morally corrupt. I didn't want to vote for him.
And you talk about promoting the general welfare. So somebody who's just going to follow the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that if you're not a Christian, you might have a very different idea about what the general welfare is than what it actually is,
dang, wow,
right?
sure, yeah, because
Give
you can
an
promote.
example.
Oh, pff,
The
homosexual
greatest
marriage.
example is
Yeah.
abortion.
that's even
Right.
better.
Right. And one guy can say, think he's supporting abortion and think he's promoting the general welfare.
No, they say it. They say
well,
exactly
they say it.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But obviously he isn't. So, I mean, the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
But I'm taught all these things that they get after him about, or most all of them, are things in his personal life that affect he and his family. But what he does publicly is a lot of it is very good.
Well,
So that's where I don't know how you accomplish that, because it seems like a person should have integrity through and through, but clearly he does not. But I just look at his record. Yes, I think you can and should support him because he's actually doing things that ought to be done.
a question in my little mind has been for a long time is can you have someone doing living a very immoral life or whatever, whether they be a pastor, well, maybe pastor's pushing it, and can they do other things well enough to where you could...
Here's the thing. If you have a profession which does not entail a moral code in it,
Okay.
a football player, they don't care if you beat the girlfriend the night before. Can you get on the football field and have 20 tackles? They'll find a place for you, right? They don't care if you're a horrible man and you go on to watch the internet and some horrible things. If you can dunk a basketball and score 40 points, you can accomplish your job. Those types of jobs have no moral component into it. But a pastor has a moral component.
Yeah, I know.
A
Absolutely.
teacher has a moral component to it, right?
Yeah.
Well, anytime you have authority over other people when it comes to moral, you have this component. And I would say the President of the United States has that moral component, which we all agree Donald Trump is deficient in.
Right.
So
So then the question
Agreed.
really comes: is he more deficient than the others who would be president?
Well, is that...
which you're making the lesser of two evils argument.
And what is he doing that's evil?
well, I mean...
He's sinning. He's a sinner. Multiple affairs.
Okay.
There's questions of his business practices, but is he evil? Is he killing people? Is he? And I'm asking the question. I'm not arguing against or for.
No, I got you.
I'm asking the
Let's
question.
just put it this way. Who
Whereas-
here? Who? Go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hillary Clinton and the Clintons have a website of the Clinton body count. You could call that evil being associated. He doesn't have anything like that. It's just I don't like his character. I don't like his orange hair. I don't like his business. There isn't a businessman that anybody admires anymore. In the 60s, that all turned from admiring businessmen to now they're the most evil people on the planet. But
No, but those
my
aren't the
point
questions,
is-
though, Chris. On those topics, I mean, the things that he wrote in here about Trump, some of them are undisputable.
Yes.
Like, and you, which you even
Sure.
mentioned.
Yes. Is there anybody here who does not think he was with Stormy Daniels? He paid her over $100,000, and then to this day he says he did nothing with her. That's a lie.
he says
That's
he did.
a flat
I don't
out
know.
lie.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know
think-
either. But I go by what I do hear when he tweets and what he says about people and certain. I mean, and you said earlier, there should be someone between him and his Twitter account.
Yeah.
But really, the man needs Jesus.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he needs to be controlled by the Holy Spirit, is what is needed here, whether he's president or not. And
yeah. Well,
Yeah. I don't know if we've answered any questions.
No.
It's interesting. The specifics in the article that I really find that curl my toes, accusing him of putting children in cages.
yeah.
That's a
Come on.
lie. That's a lie.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
A, if that's true, Obama did it. He started it. B,
Right.
it's not cages. It's the policy of, well, you broke the law.
Yeah.
And then he tries to justify, well, we should accept immigrants into our country. Yes, but illegal immigrants by definition broke the law.
Yeah.
And so the president is charged with upholding the law. He is the one who executes the laws that Congress passes. They don't like what it is, change the law.
yes,
Right, exactly.
yeah, and which
And-
Congress can't seem to do.
They don't want
No,
to
they
do
But
don't
I
want
agree with
to
you.
do it.
I agree with you, Dennis, completely. I'm very impressed that he said, I'm going to do these things.
Yeah.
And
And
he's doing them. And
yeah.
I got to give him credit for that.
It's refreshing in
So-
that respect.
So here's
that a
the
politician's doing what they say.
So here's the question: in your opinion, you think Christians are justified in overlooking the obvious moral failings of the president? You're okay with that?
You didn't hear that from me.
I know. Prof. Abby clearly said yes. Dennis, what did you say? You say you can't do it. You can't look yourself in the mirror.
I think
Is that
you
what
have to
you're
look
saying?
at how someone governs.
So, Prof. Chris,
I mean,
what do you say? What do you say?
Is the questions for Christians in general or for me or for my little small circle?
That's a
or-
good question.
Yes.
Do both. What about you?
Me? No. I
What-
vote.
What about
I wouldn't
okay.
vote.
What about Christians?
And I didn't and I won't. But Christians, is it going to interrupt their or is it going to negate their salvation?
No, no one's saying that. Is it
So,
okay for Christians to?
I think it's okay.
See, coming into this, okay, and this is a card I'm going to throw out there, and we'll have fun with this. But
We're running out of time.
oh, we
Don't
can
throw
go
such a
longer.
real big card out.
And anyway, the thing is, do we trust God's sovereignty? Okay, I know the answer, but still in the back of, I mean, so if we, quote unquote, well, Donald Trump's going to, stop abortion, let's just say that, and he's going to do some other moral things that we would definitely agree with and would want any politician to do. We would agree with that. So, where was I going with this?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Would that be enough to sway people?
well,
Would his actions as president be enough to overcome his moral
okay.
failings of his past?
Here's what I wanted to, going along with that. What I'm saying is,
We know
if we don't vote for, let's just say, if we didn't vote for him, Christians or whatever, he won't get into office. Okay? Let's just say that. So, knowing that, let's just say that's an absolutely known thing.
Okay.
Then do we restrain, even knowing that someone like him wouldn't get into office? And my point is, as we were saying earlier, God puts these people in. I mean, we've got to do the best with what we've got.
I don't understand what you're saying. Would you vote for him? If
I
you,
already answered that
okay,
question.
but so what you're saying is, would we not vote? Would Christians still not vote for him if we knew Bernie, by not voting, Bernie Sanders would be president?
Feel the burn.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean,
That's your
that
question?
can be an example, sure.
Oh, that you probably just convinced me to vote for him.
Again, the lesser of two evils.
It is the lesser of two
So
evils.
it's not an easy answer. It is a difficult question that we would struggle with, and because
I don't
the
struggle
last-
with it.
well, the last 4
Abby's not
years-
struggling at
I-
all.
the last 4
I'm not
years
struggling too much.
of his accomplishments.
You're not going to vote.
Is that enough to out? And I think that's for each Christian to because we're not voting for somebody to run the country as pastor.
No.
No.
But is it enough for me to vote for him? I'm still saying no.
Because it
Right.
says I'm
And
behind.
why again? Why is that again?
Well,
I still think that I'm on the fence. I was no when he was elected. I wouldn't have voted for him. Now I'm impressed by him doing what he said he was
sure,
going to do.
absolutely.
And some of the policies he's done looking out for Americans. I was impressed. He withdrew from
And he stands up-
Syria or ICE or whatever he withdrew from. Okay, those are things I think are important to the country.
Yeah.
So there's things that he's done, his accomplishments that are starting to sway me. Will that outweigh his moral failings before he became president? Because what has he done since he's president? Put kids in cages? Well, that's not true.
Well, I mean, some of his comments are definitely.
His comments
Oh,
are
that doesn't-
outlandish.
that doesn't bother
Is
me.
it evil? No.
We weren't quizzing you on that.
But I'm more leaning towards Professor Abbey, and yeah, I think maybe I could vote for him based on what I weigh as important as what I want for a president.
Yeah. Here's his most impressive, persuasive characteristics in 2 words: Bernie Sanders.
Well, we don't know that Bernie's going to be the nominee.
Bernie's
for him.
got it. It's over.
People voted for him mostly,
It's
in my
over.
opinion, because he did never back down. You remember we were talking
Yes.
about that when he was elected
Yes.
in the debates. Boy, he doesn't back down.
No.
And you
And
can
he
throw
still
all of
doesn't.
these things at him, and all of these failings came up. And what did he do? He just stood up and said, "Well, let me tell you." And I think the American people responded to finally somebody fighting back.
I've never seen a
Yes.
politician do what he did. Do what he's done.
Held
Not
their
even-
nose.
Reagan did it. Reagan did it to an extent.
Yeah.
But Reagan played games. Remember, Reagan was the first one to let the wave of immigrants in because he says the Democrats duped him, right? But Reagan stood
But
up.
he was in office. What I'm saying is the reason people voted for him is, in my opinion, is because he stood up for himself. And he no.
Well,
I'm
Reagan
not gonna,
did.
I'm
Yeah,
not
Reagan
gonna-
did too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reagan was
Yeah.
vicious. If you listen
Yeah.
to his debates with Jimmy Carter,
Oh yeah, he
he was
was
vicious.
brutal.
He at one point throughout the debate he refused to call him president. He says, "Mr. Carter, Mr. Carter, Mr. Carter." He refused to call him President Carter, and they got on him. Why you don't do it, Mr. Carter?
There is an
Oh.
example of someone who, by all accounts, leads a very highly moral life.
Who? Ronald Reagan?
No, President Carter.
Jimmy
Oh.
Carter.
And he was a horrendous president.
No,
Well,
that
he's-
is up for debate whether or not he led a moral
As far as
life.
we know, he was faithful
Yeah,
to his
the
wife.
things, but the things
He wasn't a
but the
liar,
thing-
he was-
But the things he
Yeah, he was
supports.
a liar.
But the things he supports are immoral. He's for abortion.
Well, now I don't know if he was then.
I think
He
so.
started the Department of Education.
He did.
He did.
I don't think he
Well,
was.
is that
He was
immoral?
the one who signed it. Yeah.
Personally, I'm saying personally, in his personal life.
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, no, he may
kinda
be
crazy.
He may be straight up.
He may be
Agreed.
now, but at the time there wasn't any
I don't know,
indication
man.
of his failings.
Do people really change that much?
Well, I mean, okay,
Ah,
yeah, no, but I think let's put it this way: whether he is or what, back then he was considered as white as rice. You know, he had no
Yeah.
blemish on himself.
Outstanding.
not
Yeah, that too.
convinced.
Not white as rice.
Not
Well,
convinced.
now in retrospect,
Well, I guess there's
but
brown
at the
rice
time,
too, right?
Yeah, at the time.
He
but-
certainly looked like it.
Yeah,
He
George
seemed
Bush
to
looked
have
like a
good
good
moral
president at the time too. Still think that about George Bush?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Last words. Go, Professor Dennis.
I mean,
Anything?
I think I've caused enough trouble.
Anything? So you're voting for Bernie Sanders?
Feel the burn, Peanut.
No, I am not voting
Okay.
for anyone who supports killing innocent people.
Okay. Prof. Abigail. Any last word? Any last?
Just again, I don't think that a person's personal, how do we say, personal sins necessarily cancels out their actual actions when in office, the way they govern.
Okay.
I don't understand how people can be so immoral personally and then do good things. I don't understand how that goes together because it seems to me to lack integrity.
When you say
but-
people, do you mean Trump?
I'm talking about Trump, but I'm sure he's not the
as
only
an
one.
archetype, right? Or,
Yeah. I mean, how can he have done all these
But that's what
really
you are
nasty
alleging.
things?
That Trump
But- well, I've
immorally
seen
is a
his- I'm s-
Neanderthal.
Yeah.
But he's doing some great things.
That
policy-wise.
is exactly what I'm saying. I don't understand it, but that's what I'm saying.
Okay, Prof. Chris.
It's up to each person to decide. And as Christians, we follow God, we pray, and in my opinion, vote for the person who would do the best for the country based on what is supposed to be the structure of the country. As a Christian, I would use moral guides to help me decide as well, but that's for each person to decide.
But when it comes to Trump, where are you landing?
I went from no way to I'm on the fence. I
Just
don't
tonight?
know yet. The last couple of days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I do got something to say.
Real quick.
I don't know if it was James Madison or what, but he said that our Constitution and our laws, or basically, I guess, the Constitution, is only good for a moral people.
A
John
religious,
Adams.
a
John
religious
Adams.
immoral people,
Yeah.
and insufficient for any other. Here's where I am. My principle has always been a lesser of two evils is still evil, and there were certain standards that a person had to come up to before I would vote. I think these are unparalleled times. Trump is a unique figure. The one thing I have against him morally, before this point, it was the LGBTQ sexual. You had to be right on the life issue and right on the marriage issue. He's right on the life issue. The LGBT, he doesn't govern as an LGBT. Yes, you've had some ambassadors. Yes, he's appointed some gay ambassadors and whatnot. But he's not pro-LGBT like Obama was. He's not. He stopped the LGBT shenanigans in the Pentagon, and he
And in
doesn't
the schools.
push. In schools, he's saying churches should not have to bow down to that. So he's a mixed bag when it comes to that. That coupled with the fact, I think if you elect a Bernie Sanders, we will not recover from that. You elect an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I don't think the country would ever survive that. If we get to that point, we're never coming back. I'm on the fence. Boy, I don't know.
Well, you can vote one way, and you know Jesus will come back sooner.
No. No. Thank you once again for listening to For Such a Time as This. We'll see you next time.
For such a time as this.